Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Thursday evening to you all. Hope you guys are doing well out there. More importantly, staying safe. Got you an update on what's going on right now. And even though by the time some of you folks watch this, it'll be the past technically, but there's a lot going on right now. The warm sector that we talked about in eastern Texas, areas of Louisiana, and then maybe eventually southwest Arkansas is popping off this afternoon, this evening. We've already had a couple reports of a couple tornadoes. Storm chaser named Brad Arnold is doing a really good job out there on this one storm that I believe has produced twice, and on his stream has already confirmed. And we've all seen it. There's been a tornado, but unfortunately, this is kind of verifying. In fact, we look back, the Storm Prediction Center actually dropped the 15% risk and moved it back to a 10% risk. But we're getting supercells firing up in this moist sector. So it's one of those things where the short range models did not do a great job reflecting what could potentially happen as far as actually showing supercells. But it's happening right now. I know a lot of people are probably watching the live streams, and I don't blame you. I was getting distracted kind of preparing this video. I was kind of preparing it and then going back and forth and watching people's live stream. That's something I would love to do here in the future as far as getting my vehicle set up to live stream with you guys. And that is definitely a plan in the future. But as we always do, we're here to do our part here at Mitch West Weather to keep you guys updated. We'll go over what could happen the rest of the night. We'll talk about tomorrow, which I think is going to continue to increase. Talking about you areas of Tennessee and really Kentucky, I think the tornado threat will increase. There's going to be damaging winds tomorrow in Kentucky. I'm talking about an area of hurricane force wind gusts that's going to sweep through portions of Tennessee and basically all of Kentucky tomorrow. We need to talk about that. We'll talk about for areas further southeast and like North Georgia, the Carolinas, what kind of threat do they have? And of course, we'll give you an update on what's going on with this winter storm at the end of the video. So if you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. And if you guys got anything that I can pray about or pray over, please put it in the comments below. So let's get rolling. Let's immediately just go to the radar. And I'm doing this at 6:24 Eastern time. It's 5:24 out here in Central time. We got multiple warnings. This is the radar out of Shreveport. The low-level jet. Let's back this up a little bit. The low-level jet is just cranking up over this area. You got all kinds of storms that have that classic hook to them. I mean, look at this one about to ride over Shreveport. It's not tornado warned, but it could get tornado warned as it moves north and even more favorable conditions. It's already in favorable conditions. But you see how all these storms have that hook signature, kind of like that, like that, like that, like that. That is, if you're looking at the radar immediately when you see that, okay, this could potentially be rotating. And all these are. Every single one of these storms are rotating. It's just the fact that is it rotating enough to actually drop a tornado? And some of these cells already have. I believe this was the one that's produced a couple tornadoes. But these are producing out here, guys. And this is what we were worried about. And we were thinking that maybe had a chance not to happen. But this is the massive, moist, warm sector right into here. And this is the line way back here in Texas that you can't see because we're not in the radar vision of this, that's producing some big hailers. Everywhere you see a circle, that is a storm producing some kind of size of hail. But unfortunately, we have a wide open warm sector, and we have a long time before this line of storms makes its way. I mean, it hadn't even reached the Dallas-Fort Worth area. It's knocking on the door of them right now. But these cells have room, and they're going to eventually get going into southwest Arkansas. So this is a worry. I mean, you got there's a lot going on. And unfortunately, this is kind of one of those times where I wish I could do my part and go live. But these are producing out here. It's a dangerous situation unfolding. And unfortunately, tornadic-wise, it's a worst-case scenario. In fact, we look at what's supposed to be happening right now, and I would say right here, there's a bunch of cells down here in eastern Texas and even down in Louisiana that are not showing up on the HRRR model run. It tells you that it's failing at picking up on that. Normally, I tip my cap to the HRRR model, but it's not doing a great job. Regardless, there's cells right here that aren't showing up. So we'll keep this rolling here. Regardless, we know that there's going to be a nasty line of storms that sweeps through all of northeast Texas, the rest of southeast Oklahoma. This is around 9 p.m., 10 p.m., 11 p.m., midnight. These begin to knock on the door of Little Rock. This starts to get close to Shreveport. These will be producing the potential for damaging winds in this entire area right into here. And then this low pressure really begins to get northeast. And then this begins to, all this action begins to surge east, sure, but northeast is when the damaging wind threat can really get going. I mean, this is about 3 o'clock in the morning. You could have embedded tornadoes in these areas of eastern Arkansas. But, the latest HRRR model finally gets the line kind of rejuvenated around 5, 6 a.m., begins to enter eastern Mississippi, knocks on the door around daybreak in Memphis. Everything behind this is likely non-severe, could be some gusty winds, but you got drier air filtering in behind this. But this is when this nasty line of storms begins to develop about early to mid-morning again, and then a sector opens up in Kentucky. But listen, damaging winds, the tornado threat is ongoing. And what's wild is, like I said, you still got the moderate risk, but the tornado threat dropped early this morning, and I wouldn't be surprised if they drop another update, like just an update here shortly that brings this back to a 15% risk somewhere in here. But if it doesn't, it doesn't. Regardless, there's an ongoing tornado threat in eastern Tennessee and eventually into southwest Arkansas before this line moves through. It's a dangerous situation right now. We'll keep flipping back and looking at the radar, but certainly not a good look. Not a good look at all. You got a report of damage now, probably because of this tornadic. I mean, you got 3 tornado warnings all in one little area. And I'm telling you, this cell, once this one right here, south of Shreveport, once it gets into kind of northwest areas of Louisiana, I think that it's going to eventually, sometime in the life of that storm, get going here. So we know the tornado threat's there. We know the damaging wind threat. Nothing's changed with this since this morning's video. Nothing. And I hate that I'm just flying through it, but nothing has changed. There's a damaging wind threat that's going to develop here in the next couple hours. It's already ongoing. Significant hail threat with these storms. That's the threat right now, really. Right now. Hopefully no sales develop right over the Dallas-Fort Worth area. There's been some really nasty hail producers just west and northwest and north of Dallas throughout the afternoon hours, but they have not moved directly over the city, but the line will develop and move over the city. So let's talk about tomorrow really quick. Not really quick. We'll get into some details here. There's now an enhanced risk for tomorrow. We expected this, but not for this reason. It's for wind. There's a 30% risk to see damaging winds within 25 miles in any given location, pushing 50 knots or higher. Right now, just a huge 5% risk of a tornado, but I'd almost bet a paycheck that you're going to get a 10% risk that gets issued here in Kentucky and parts of Tennessee sometime in the next update or two. Could be a significant update too, and these are going to be some very fast-moving storms that sweep through Kentucky just after lunchtime, Tennessee also throughout the afternoon hours. Okay, they're going to be sweeping through fast. They will come up on you quick. The winds will be howling, and there's going to be some issues. Okay, and speaking of the winds howling, you have high wind warnings. This includes Memphis, to Nashville, up to Lexington, Kentucky, and everybody. All these areas, Knoxville, Huntsville, Alabama. Extreme, I wouldn't use the word extreme winds, but very, very high winds. I'm talking someone can get just an 80-mile-per-hour wind gust. And that's because you have this low pressure up to the north, and you're just south of this low pressure. The kinematics, the wind energy is maxed out in this area. Meaning, the winds are just ripping aloft, and it's mixing to the surface. High winds ongoing. It's going to be wild weather in Kentucky and Tennessee tomorrow. In fact, let's go on and just look at the radar out of Kentucky and Tennessee. And this is kind of how it can unfold. First off, you'll be waking up to some heavy rain. There'll be some kind of clearing sometime from Nashville to areas of southern, south central Kentucky. Some kind of clearing. That's not good. A sector basically opens up after the low pressure pushes this main plume of heavy rain northward. And then this is when this kind of whole entire area gets tail whipped by this ugly line of storms with damaging winds mixed in with this. And you see all these that kind of have that little look to it. These could be some quick moving tornadic storms. You have just enough CAPE in the atmosphere, just enough low level moisture, and maxed out kinematics. By far the favorite thing here is the wind profiles, prolific. And you're going to have damaging winds regardless. High winds regardless of what storm moves over your house. But these will have a chance to produce a very fast-moving, potentially strong tornado. And they will be moving quick. They will sweep through the state of Kentucky. Basically, they will move into the state of Kentucky probably around, 9, 10 a.m. They will sweep through the state. This is right around where what could be the worst, best daytime heating. These storms down here in eastern Tennessee are a big deal too. The Cumberland Plateau, Knoxville, northeast Tennessee. They move through all these hilly areas. And then, they're out the state by dinner time, 5 p.m. The severe threat's over. And then you got cold air crashing in, and the whole entire atmosphere changes. So this will be an all-day event, but it will sweep through. And once this line moves through your area, the severe weather threat's probably done. And you just have damaging winds, just strong winds to deal with. But somebody is going to get a tornado here in Tennessee and Kentucky tomorrow. These are going to be some dangerous storms. Speaking of the significant tornado parameter, this just tells us how much does the atmosphere support a tornado? Well, in Kentucky and Tennessee, it certainly does support it. It supports it all the way down to Georgia and South Carolina, but you're lacking certain things down there, forcing to promote thunderstorm development in general. But, look at these parameters. You got all the way up to 10, over 10, significant, the tornado parameter. This tells us that, listen, the atmospheric players are going to be there for things to spin in Kentucky and Tennessee tomorrow. And it moves through quick, and then it's done. The winds will be ridiculous. This is getting into Friday morning. They pick up, and they are relentless. This is around midday Kentucky. You're gusting to 65, 75 miles per hour. You get a corridor of winds about the same in Nashville that rips through the entire state of Tennessee. I know I'm just saying cities, but the entire state of Tennessee gets a period basically from morning to evening hours of very strong winds. And then we'll stop it here. This is around 2 p.m. And the winds are absolutely ripping through Kentucky, Tennessee. It's very windy up here in Indianapolis and the Ohio Valley. Winds are really kicking up in the southern Appalachian Mountains. And just the winds are going to mix at the surface. There's going to be an issue with this damaging winds. That'll be the biggest threat. But I'm telling you, there will be embedded tornadoes somewhere in this. And then this sweeps through. There's going to be a lot of wind damage. I really think in Kentucky tomorrow. Sweeps through. Trying to keep my composure. Keep the guys. I try to stay level-headed, but I really think it's a nasty atmosphere in Kentucky. Normally, you don't get these kind of parameters that you're seeing in Kentucky, the state of Kentucky. And there's some hills in Kentucky. There's some flatter areas and some hills again. I'm speaking like I've been to Kentucky. I never have. It's just been from what people have told me. Of course, we know we got the plateau right here, the Cumberland Plateau in Tennessee, then the valley in between it. Definitely nasty chasing terrain. I've been back and forth on whether I want to take a 5.5-hour trip to eastern Tennessee, southern Kentucky tomorrow. But who knows? I might just wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and do it. So if you see a video from me saying I'm dead, don't be surprised, because I am very spontaneous when it comes to chasing. So for my folks in Georgia, the Carolinas, wondering about, hey, what happened to our severe weather threat? Well, it's there. The ingredients are there, but you're lacking what we call forcing. So, and then there's warm air aloft. So forcing, what I mean when I say that, and I got it stopped at about 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. You do have some storms in North Georgia, the upstate of South Carolina, and then the mountains and foothills of North Carolina. When I say forcing, when you have a low pressure that flies way to the north all the way into the Ohio Valley, you lack forcing basically for thunder. You lack what you need for thunderstorm, basically the oomph you need for thunderstorm development. If you had low pressure flying through Kentucky, then this would be probably a tornado outbreak for the Carolinas. But it's flying through like northern areas of the Ohio Valley in the Midwest. So you're lacking forcing. You also have a little warm air aloft, which means basically it's almost like a capping mechanism. Warm air aloft just chokes out these updrafts and they can't really get going. So basically what I'm saying is, any storms that do get going are going to take an entire light year to really mature. It's really going to take them a long time to get going. But I'm telling you, someone's going to get a little sneaky tornado warning probably along the 85 corridor in upstate South Carolina. Things like the spin where the elevation increases up in upstate South Carolina, I would not be surprised. Me and a couple local people, got a couple friends, Gerald, the guy that runs GM Weather, that I promote his channel often. He lives right up here near basically the upstate of South Carolina, and this is like a mini tornado alley right into here. It really is. So I would not be surprised if something gets going in this area. Not one bit. And I still might chase that. I might not go to Kentucky. I might not chase it all. It's a weird setup. But, I mean, look at these storms in eastern Kentucky. You keep this going, and you got to watch out. Some of these could spin. You got much better what we call thermodynamics down here in the Carolinas and Georgia, meaning you have better low-level moisture profiles, and you got better Cape levels. Well, you don't have better Cape levels, but you have the potential for more for it to generate its own kind of storm fuel, if you will. But anyways, this keeps flying through, and this will really drop off as it gets into eastern sections of Virginia and the Carolinas, where it won't be a big deal. Let's talk about the winter weather threat to this. As of right now, there's been no upgrade to warnings for whatever reason. By the time some of you folks watch this, there will be winter storm warnings up. I can almost guarantee you in certain counties in North Indiana, maybe even just south of Chicago. I wouldn't be surprised if they keep Chicago at a winter weather advisory. It looks like some of the heaviest snow has shifted a little further south. But I really think just north of Detroit, these areas right here are going to get 7 to 8 inches of snow possible. Let's take a look at the latest HRRR model. We'll start off Friday morning. Heavy moisture moving into the Midwest and Illinois, Indiana. Some areas will start off as rain and really quickly the column will crash. There will be a very tight gradient of no moisture and very heavy moisture. Big time kind of frontogenesis kind of setup. But when it starts snowing in some of these areas, like in, this could be mixing with snow right here in eastern Missouri. It certainly could be. In fact, I think it will. And same thing with western Illinois. But once you get into eastern Illinois, especially northeast Illinois, northern Indiana, I mean, when you got these yellows and oranges and reds moving into colder air and it's switching the blue for snow, you're probably getting 1 to 2 inches per hour rates here. It's probably snowing like crazy as we're getting into tomorrow afternoon for the far northern counties of Indiana, and then moving for a period of time up into Chicago where it will snow very hard. You could get some thunder snow snowing very hard in eastern Illinois, western Indiana, northern Indiana as we're getting into Friday evening, and then this heads on off. I mean, by the time you're in the midnight Saturday, this drops several inches of snow for certain areas, and then it heads on off. Snowfall, as of right now, as of 3:34 p.m. Central Time, they're still going for 4 to 6 inches in Chicago. I would aim towards the lower side of that. That's just my opinion. Not trying to gyp you guys in Chicago, but that's what I would say. But just south of town, somebody could squeeze in a half a foot. I definitely think it's possible. But remember, a lot of times, these precipitation fields end up moving more north than what's forecasted. So that's one thing to watch. And if this thing shifts another 30 miles north, Chicago, you could certainly get a half a foot of snow. You really could. For my folks up here, and I just really remembered that I didn't really ever show the radar a little bit further north. So let's do that. Let's go to the upper Midwest and how this can unfold. But, this heavy snow will move into southern Michigan as early as probably 1 or 2 p.m. tomorrow afternoon. And I really think Detroit will be right on the fringe of very, very heavy snow. If you guys can stay heavy snow, this is going to be, several inches of snow in Detroit. But just north of Detroit, this is around 7 p.m. tomorrow evening. You got a raging, quick hitting snowstorm in southern and central, especially south central areas of Michigan. And then this moves in. By the time you get into midnight, this thing's heading on off. And heading to the northeast. I mean, by the time you're waking up Saturday morning, you'll have a winter wonderland in certain areas. And, the rest is history. So snow for my folks in Michigan, going for 8 inches in Flint, Michigan. Lansing, 8 inches. Grand Rapids, 3 to 4 inches. Jackson, Michigan, 7 inches. Kalamazoo, 6 inches. Detroit, they're going for about 5 inches of snow. So, I think that would be one of your biggest snows of the winter. Well, maybe not. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what your biggest snow in Detroit has been of the winter. But, these guys have been hit by ice last week. And, it's been some active weather up here in the Great Lakes region for sure. But another way to look at this here for everybody, just a corridor of snow, of accumulating snow from northeast Illinois all the way up through Michigan. And then maybe even some far northwest counties Ohio, right at the beginning of this event, can get a few inches of snow very quickly, very quickly. My folks up here in the Northeast, this will begin to move in as early as midday Friday. Start off as a wintering mix. It's going to be a tough forecast for central Pennsylvania, north central Pennsylvania State College. You could start off as a burst of sleet, snow. Same thing with, Buffalo. Sometime around dinner time tomorrow, you could start off as a heavy burst of snow. But you see these you see this orange or pinkish area right here that is sleet mixing with freezing rain. And this is going to be a huge thumping of snow right at the beginning of this in central New York State. It's moving into southern New England too, but you're all rain in New York City, Baltimore, Philadelphia, Long Island. This is all rain for you guys. But it's coming down. It's snowing like. Stay up late if you want to tomorrow night if you really want to see heavy, wet snowfall rates in Boston, like 2 or 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. But this is all sleet. Based off the HRRR model in Connecticut, Rhode Island, heavy snow falling in New Hampshire, Vermont, northern sections of the state and western sections of the state of Mass, maybe hanging on the snow in northwestern Connecticut. You're starting to switch to sleet, maybe even rain, and then you crash back to snow in Buffalo. And then this continues. Remember, we only can go 48 hours out, but you might start to mix with sleet at the end of this, and then maybe crash back to snow sometime Saturday afternoon in Boston. I know I kind of breezed through that very quickly, but in general, this is snowfall from this entire event from the National Weather Service. You get a little bit closer to my folks in Massachusetts, and they're only going for about 1 inch, 2 inches of snow in areas of Boston. So they're staying conservative. But you go just west of town, you can start to get into those 6 to 10 inch snowfall totals. But I think Boston's going to get a lot of sleet. I think that's what the National Weather Service is trying to say, that they could potentially get a lot of sleet. And there's going to be some nasty freezing rain in Pennsylvania. We'll go on and show that really quick. There could be some, decent freezing rain totals. Watch out even in western Maryland, where that area seems to always be favored for, some big icing. But there's going to be pockets of freezing rain. There's going to be a lot of sleet mixed in with this too. So, yeah, that's all I got, guys. Y'all stay safe out there. We'll look at the radar one more quick time, and then I'll jump off here. But, this is still kicking off. There's a nasty cell that has moved into southeast Oklahoma. Luckily, there's only one tornado-warned storm. Maybe these are starting to lose some steam, but there's plenty of steam ahead of these storms. So here comes the crashing line behind it, guys. This is moving in, and then moving like that, and we'll see what else these storms can do. Stay safe out there in eastern Texas for sure. Areas of Louisiana, Arkansas, north, southeast Oklahoma. God bless all y'all, and I'll see what I'm going to do tomorrow. I might not have an update in the morning. I might not. Depends on if I'm chasing or not. If I'm chasing locally, I will have an update in the morning. If I'm going all the way to Kentucky, I won't have an update in the morning. But God bless all y'all. Stay safe, and talk to you soon.